No one could have predicted that Prince William's first major move on his path to the throne would be this explosive. In a decision that left the entire United Kingdom stunned, William, long seen as calm, measured, and loyal to family values, unexpectedly stripped the royal titles from the two children of the Wessex household, the son and daughter of Duchess Sophie and Prince Edward. The decision came without warning, without a traditional statement from the palace, and with no official explanation. But the consequences were clear. Louise and James, once expected to play prominent roles in the next generation of the royal family, are now reduced to ordinary citizens in name. Observers immediately began to ask questions. Could this be the first step in William's rumored strategy to slim down the monarchy? Or is this the beginning of a quiet purge designed to consolidate power ahead of his future coronation? One thing is certain. After this decision, the royal family will never be the same again. And the truth behind it all may be far darker than the public could ever imagine. This royal drama is set to escalate tensions and spark curiosity. Lady Louise and James, the children of Prince Edward and Duchess Sophie, were born into the royal bloodline, but have lived a life completely different from most other royals. Their blood is noble, yet their childhoods were quiet, far from the spotlight and the clamor of public scrutiny. From the very beginning, their parents chose a normal path for them, away from the palace walls and the harsh pressures of public life. They were not granted royal titles, did not participate in endless public duties, and no one expected them to grow up to serve the crown. This was the choice of Prince Edward and Duchess Sophie, prioritizing their children's happiness over any royal tradition. Then, recently, everything quietly shifted behind the palace doors. Reports reveal that Prince William has quietly ended any chance for Louise and James to take on royal roles or receive official titles. There was no noise, no drama, just a modern move, part of a larger plan to slim down the monarchy, a vision shared by both William and King Charles. For Duchess Sophie, this change is deeply personal. Years ago, Queen Elizabeth promised that when Louise and James came of age, they could choose whether to keep their royal titles. But that promise now seems quietly rewritten, without explanation. A small change that has firmly closed the door forever. With this subtle shift in palace policy, everything feels different. Louise and James never yearned for royal status, but their choice has been quietly taken away. This is not a scandal, nor a sensational drama. It is a silent shock with Shamayin, shaking the very foundation of what it means to be royal in this generation. For the Wessex children, whether they want to be royal no longer matters. What matters is whether they truly have the chance. While most royal babies are welcomed as global events with flashing cameras and cheering crowds, Louise and James had a completely different start. No red carpets, no balcony waves, just days of horseback riding, school uniforms, and warm family dinners. Their parents, Prince Edward and Sophie, formerly Sophie Rhys-Jones, chose a peaceful life for their children without the pressure and paparazzi glare. They had the legal right to royal titles under the 1917 rules and could have been called Princess Louise and Prince James. But their parents said no, not out of rebellion or to cause controversy, but simply to let their children live like normal kids. Sophie once explained this decision was made to protect her children from the burdens of royal life. In a world where tradition often beats personal freedom, this was a brave and loving choice. While other royal children learned to greet the public and handle photographers, Louise and James were just kids growing up in Bagshot Park, a peaceful area in Surrey, going to school, playing outside, and enjoying family time without cameras watching. Louise, the eldest, was born in 2003 under difficult circumstances, arriving early and facing serious eye conditions requiring multiple surgeries. Throughout it all, Sophie stood by her side, taking her to school, helping with homework, and ensuring her daughter lived a normal life. It is a rare image of a royal parent who always puts her children first. James arrived in 2007 and was given the title Viscount Severn, a nod to his mother's Welsh background. Like his sister, he wasn't raised with royal trappings. He appeared only occasionally, such as at family Christmases or special royal gatherings. Louise and James weren't completely detached from royal life. They knew who they were and spent precious time with their grandmother, Queen Elizabeth, who was said to be very fond of them. But they enjoyed a softer childhood, filled with love and peace instead of pressure and expectations. Now, years later, as the monarchy shifts under King Charles and Prince William's leadership, the quiet agreement once made with Queen Elizabeth seems to be fading. The choice promised to Louise and James to step into royal life if they wished has been silently erased. It didn't happen with a fight or public fallout. It was simply done. A soft but lasting change redefining what the royal family will look like. The story of Louise and Prince isn't just about two royal children missing out on titles. It's about how past promises can vanish in the name of progress. About whether being royal today means more than bloodlines. And about two young people who grew up in a world that seemed royal but may never have truly welcomed them. Louise and James didn't spend their childhood rushing to royal events or following royal schedules. Their lives were gentle and personal, shaped by curiosity and freedom rather than formality and duty. Sophie often spoke of this calm approach to raising her kids. She shared that they attended regular schools, had friends who didn't know they were royal, and that was exactly what she and Edward wanted. They gave their children a rare gift in royal life, a peaceful childhood. In today's world, where every royal move is scrutinized, raising royal kids away from pressure is remarkable. Young royals are expected to be perfect role models while remaining relatable, a nearly impossible balance. But Louise and James grew without that weight. Even this quiet freedom came with risks. Long ago, Queen Elizabeth promised that when Louise and James became adults, they could decide whether to take on titles and royal responsibilities. It was a trusting agreement. Nothing forced, nothing taken away. This meant a lot to Louise, who shared a warm bond with her grandmother. They had sweet moments together at Balmoral, talking about horses and history. Louise had a special way of making the Queen laugh, even in her final years. Their relationship was a rare, heartwarming connection across generations. But as time passed, everything began to change. With King Charles leading and Prince William shaping the future, the open door once promised to Louise and James is quietly shutting. The thoughtful childhood Sophie and Edward crafted was meant to lead to a choice, a decision Louise and James could make when ready. Now, that choice may no longer exist. Prince William, the future king, isn't just waiting to take the crown. He's designing what the royal family will become. For years, he's played the responsible son, the steady prince smiling for photos while carrying centuries of tradition. But behind that calm image is a careful plan for a smaller, more controlled royal family. One with fewer royals, fewer titles, more work, and less drama. This idea isn't new. King Charles envisioned a simpler royal system decades ago, but William is making it happen. His plan aims to modernize and streamline the monarchy. Behind the scenes, it has hit harder than expected, and no one feels the weight more than Louise and James. While Queen Elizabeth was alive, there was hope younger royals could grow into roles when the time felt right. She believed each family member would find their place with guidance. But in William's plan, there's no room for maybe. He has quietly decided the royal circle won't grow. No new royals added to the work list. No sudden titles. No rewards for being born royal. Without public notice or official statements, Louise and James have been left out. There was no dramatic exit, just a quiet decision not to include them. Palace insiders call it practical. Fewer royals mean less confusion, better control, and less risk. After scandals like Prince Andrew's downfall and Harry and Meghan's departure, William sees this as protection, preventing trouble before it starts. But for Sophie, Edward, and their children, the emotional impact is deep. This isn't about missing duties or funds. It's about identity, a path they thought they could choose, now gone. Although Prince William's actions surprised everyone, no one expected Louise's decision on the title issue. When she turned 18, Louise chose not to take the title of princess, not out of rebellion, but with grace. There was still hope James, being younger, might feel differently. Yet William's decision has removed that chance. James didn't even get to consider it. Sources say there were calm, respectful talks behind palace walls. No arguments, just clear messaging. Titles won't be given. Duties won't be offered. Louise and James will live quiet, private lives, far from royal stages, no HRH, no public service, no place in the spotlight. William isn't trying to shock the world, he's shaping it. Every title he lets go or royal name he leaves out simplifies and rewrites the monarchy. Louise and James, once in a space between royalty and normality, are being guided toward ordinary life. Sophie may see this as a quiet loss of a promise. For Louise and James, it's a bittersweet reminder that being born royal doesn't always mean living royal. And some choices are made before you get the chance to choose. Two outsiders. Duchess Sophie always seemed calm and graceful, a peaceful figure in a family often surrounded by drama. She didn't chase headlines or the spotlight, but those close to her admit there's pain behind her calm smile, something deeply personal no camera could capture. For Sophie, being royal was never just about titles or events. It was about promises and trust built over time. Now, some of those promises feel broken. When Sophie married Prince Edward in '99, she did so with elegance and confidence. With a background in public relations and her own agency, she understood media attention, but nothing prepared her for the quiet battles she'd face for her children. She and Edward made a bold decision to raise Lady Louise and James without royal titles, not out of disrespect for their bloodline, but to let their kids grow without the pressure of royal life. They wanted Louise and James to discover who they were without the expectations tied to their last name. Queen Elizabeth supported this choice, loving Sophie's children dearly. She promised that when the time was right, Louise and James could choose to use their birth titles, prince or princess. The door would remain open. Sophie raised her children with values, kindness, and strength, teaching them about tradition and responsibility without forcing it. She spoke of motherhood with care, reflecting the thought put into giving her kids a balanced life. One foot in the royal world, one in the everyday. Now, under new palace leadership, Sophie senses a shift. Prince William's vision, though unspoken, is clear to insiders. The royal family will exclude extended relatives unless absolutely necessary. It's about streamlining, focusing on those who directly serve the crown. Everyone else is quietly moved aside, and Sophie's children are among them. There have been no public complaints or dramatic interviews, but Sophie is said to have spoken calmly but firmly, reminding those in charge of the promises made with the late queen. It's painful, insiders say, not because Louise and James were denied something, but because it happened without honesty or conversation. It feels like a door lock just when it was supposed to open. Watching her children sidelined, left out of a world they were born into, has taken a toll. Sophie, who balanced her roles as royal and mother gracefully, now finds that balance harder. The pressure grows, not just from monarchy changes, but from the emotional weight of watching her kids erased from a future they could have chosen. Still, she doesn't make noise. She protects them quietly, firmly, with a mother's love. For Sophie, this isn't about power. It's about her children's dignity, their identity, and the choices they were promised. As the royal family redefines itself under William's leadership, Sophie stands quietly, holding the line between tradition and a mother's feelings. She's a duchess by title, but more than that, a mother who remembers every promise and refuses to let her children be forgotten. When Lady Louise turned 18 in November 2021, the moment of truth arrived. All her life, She carried a title she never used, Her Royal Highness, Princess Louise of Wessex. Sophie and Edward raised her without it, but it wasn't meant to be gone forever. The Queen promised Louise could choose for herself. When the day came, Louise quietly declined the royal title. No announcements, no press releases, just a soft statement from her mother that Louise chose to remain Lady Louise, living without the title's pressure. Sophie explained her daughter was content. It wasn't rebellion or protest, just Louise being calm, thoughtful, and graceful. She didn't need a title to feel proud. Her childhood prepared her, though she wasn't always public. She appeared at moments like the Queen's Platinum Jubilee, Prince Philip's Memorial, and the carriage procession at Royal Ascot. Louise shared a deep bond with her grandmother, Queen Elizabeth. Loving horses and enjoying long walks at Balmoral, the Queen saw herself in Louise, a quiet strength, powerful without proving it. Now, Louise carries that dignity. She may not have taken the title, but she carries her history with pride. Sophie watches, standing behind her children, holding on to what was promised. She hasn't forgotten and never will. Insiders say during the Queen's final summers at Balmoral, she spent more time with Louise than other grandchildren, their bond beyond formalities. When Louise chose not to take the princess title, it honored her grandmother's humble approach to royalty, focused on service, not flashy titles. But simultaneously, the royal family was changing. King Charles stepped in, and William took more leadership. Their new plan left no room for extended royals in official roles. Louise's quiet decision to step away aligned perfectly with the palace's needs, saving them from saying no outright. Even if she had wanted a title or duties, they likely would have refused behind closed doors. When Queen Elizabeth passed in 2002, it marked a new era. The focus shifted to King Charles. William and younger royals kept from the limelight. James, once a quiet boy, gained in notice after Prince Edward was named Duke of Edinburgh by King Charles. James received a new title, Earl of Wessex, a small change with big meaning, reminding everyone he's royal. With adulthood nearing, people wonder, will James take the title of Prince by rules? He can call himself His Royal Highness, Prince James of Edinburgh. But with William's streamlined monarchy, fewer working royals, tighter circles, no new members, that door may already be closed. James keeps to himself, enjoying nature, cheerful, and close to his grandparents, especially the Queen and Prince Philip. Many admired his calm, respectful demeanor at their funerals, standing tall and composed for someone so young. But he's not prepared for public duties. No major appearances, solo events, or training for royal work. Insiders say Sophie hasn't stopped protecting her son, reminding the palace of promises that James, like Louise, would choose for himself. But the new royal family isn't waiting. The choices may be gone before James can make them. Insiders admit James is unlikely to be invited into an official role. Even if he wants to serve, the response would likely be a gentle refusal, dressed as being in the family's best interest. The royal path is closed, decided not by James but by the system. What's left is whether he'll accept it quietly, like his sister, choosing freedom from royal constraints. He might slip into a life of school, hobbies, and privacy. Or he may speak up one day. But the palace has spoken. James carries a royal name, but no royal place awaits. Now attention drifts to him, following the path his sister walked. Where Louise carried tradition's weight, James bears something heavier, being overlooked. Eyes may turn to him, but the royal machine has moved on. In Buckingham Palace's echoing corridors, change rarely comes with loud announcements. It sneaks through unsaid things, conversations behind closed doors, titles that never arrive. That's how William reshapes the royal future, not with big moves, but quiet, firm decisions. William is shaping the royal family differently, thinking years ahead, redefining what it means to be royal. While focus is on him, Catherine, and their children, something deeper unfolds. James and Louise, always in the background, are now key in this royal puzzle. Their choices, accepting roles or staying sidelined, could shift the monarchy's path. William isn't shouting about changes, he's doing it calmly but powerfully, turning from old traditions. He wants a smaller, focused royal team, centered on his family. There's a personal cost. James and Louise weren't meant to carry this weight. Sophie ensured they lived peacefully, away from duties and media. Now that calm is tested, and the future differs from her hopes. Behind palace walls, discomfort grows, especially over titles. Insiders say Sophie feels tension. The world she built for her children is shaken by unexpected choices. She and Edward kept their children from royal stress, choosing not to use prince or princess titles, not rejecting the family, but letting their kids live normally. Queen Elizabeth agreed, a decision made from love. But William's plans challenged that agreement, tightening the royal circle, cutting out extended members. Louise and James find themselves at a crossroads, pulled toward a map they didn't ask to join. Sophie, known for calm and kindness, is gently speaking up, reminding everyone of promises made by her, Edward, and the Queen. That decision wasn't a mistake, but a thoughtful choice for joy, privacy, and peace. Now, that promise is challenged by a new royal vision. While the world watches William lead with confidence, another story unfolds, a mother holding on to the world she built. She never expected this, never wanted her children to carry royal weight. But that weight is returning. This isn't a loud battle, no arguments or headlines. But for Sophie, Edward, James, and Louise, it's deeply personal and emotional, happening quietly in the background. As the royal family enters a new era, Sophie, once a quiet figure, is gently speaking up, not for fame, but to protect her children's peaceful life. As royalty changes, it's clear Louise and James's future may impact the monarchy more than anyone imagined. With William narrowing the royal structure to his immediate household, the understanding about Sophie's children feels shaky. He hasn't openly asked relatives to step aside, but signs are clear. Louise and James' exclusion from major royal moments sends a strong message. William's focus is on his wife and kids, quietly worrying Sophie. She feels her children are being pushed from a family they belong to. The fear deepens. What if Louise and James are expected to join royal life without support or training? Sophie remains graceful, appearing composed at events like the Queen's funeral and Charles's coronation. But she's torn, juggling her role as a mother and loyalty to a changing royal system. This isn't about titles alone. Without them, it's like being told to stay invisible, to be thankful, and not ask questions. That hurts Sophie most. Her kids are the Queen's grandchildren, part of the family. So why are they treated otherwise? She sees the big picture. William carries a heavy load after Andrew's scandals, Harry and Meghan's exit, and public scrutiny over spending. He's building a cleaner, efficient monarchy. But for Sophie, it cuts deeper. She's not asking for attention, just fairness. If Louise and James aren't part of the royal future, they should live quietly without expectations. If they are, they deserve respect, preparation, and support. They're stuck in the middle, not fully in, not fully out, an uncomfortable place. Sophie carries this weight daily. It's not duty, it's her heart, her children's future. She's been loyal, never leaking secrets, writing scandalous books, or seeking the spotlight. She earned trust and her place. Yet now, after years of loyalty, she watches it slip. She'd never voice her sadness publicly, but insiders say she's hurting, never expecting her children to be deemed unimportant. It's painful, especially with Edward's Duke of Edinburgh title, once Prince Philip's, meant to elevate their family. Instead, it raises questions if Edward holds such a role. Why are their children excluded? Sophie balances keeping her kids safe from public chaos and ensuring their royal bloodline is acknowledged. William does what he thinks best, trimming the monarchy, keeping its image strong. But between these dreams, something must give. Eyes turn to James. Will he accept a title and public royal life, shifting everything? Or will he, like Louise, choose a quiet path? This moment is bigger than it seems, and the story isn't over. Lady Louise and James, Earl of Wessex, were never meant to be at royalty's center. Their parents wanted a peaceful life, far from cameras and headlines. That was the plan. But William's redesign of the royal family pulls them into a defining moment. This new royalty isn't about crowns or parades. It's about who stays in the spotlight and who fades. Louise and James, whether they asked for it or not, stand at the edge of a choice that could change their lives. Their journey hasn't been simple. As a baby, Louise faced esotropia, a condition misaligning her eyes, making early appearances tough. She underwent surgeries, and her family kept it private, shielding her from public scrutiny. Sophie was fiercely protective, ensuring Louise had time to grow, heal, and find her way without judgment. It was about a normal childhood, free from pressure. Louise found solace in carriage driving, like her grandfather, Prince Philip. It wasn't just a hobby, but a safe space, connecting her to someone she admired. At events like the Royal Windsor Horse Show, people noticed her, not for clothes or headlines, but for quiet talent, reminiscent of Philip's charm. Louise appeared at major royal events, like Queen Elizabeth's passing, walking gracefully behind her coffin. She stood tall, never seeking attention, showing quiet strength and respect. She didn't need a title to prove she belonged. Her actions spoke louder, proving dignity without constant praise. Now, eyes are on her and James. With the royal family smaller and focused, their place is unclear. Will they live quietly, away from expectations, or step into unprepared roles? Their decisions will affect more than their futures. They could shape the next generation of royalty. At 16, James, Earl of Wessex, is catching the public's eye. He appears more at big events, jubilees, Easter services, Commonwealth Games, standing beside his parents, quietly learning. It's not flashy, but people notice, some wonder if he'll become a rare younger royal taking a full-time role. His father, Edward, as Duke of Edinburgh, may guide him toward that. The title, tied to loyalty and duty, suggests James is being asked to consider his future. But is this what James and Louise want? Do they dream of staying private or stepping into demanding royal duties with cameras and pressure? Unlike William and Harry, raised knowing the world watched, Louise and James grew in between, not hidden, but not pushed forward. They can't vanish into ordinary lives unnoticed. As William shapes the monarchy, choosing who stays close, Louise and James must soon decide where they belong. Some believe Louise may stay private, perhaps writing or pursuing art. Others see James growing into a steady royal figure. But nothing is certain. Everything shifts quickly. The story of Louise and James is not just about titles or power, but a profound lesson about the value of choice and family love. In a royal world where tradition and duty are always prioritized, the decision by their parents to protect them from public pressure and give them a normal life is a courageous and deeply respectful act. It reminds us that no matter our position in society, the happiness and healthy development of children should always come first, far beyond superficial glories. The call here is for all of us, especially those with influence, to always place children and loved ones at the center of every decision. Remember that power and fame are not the only measures of success or worth. Sometimes peace, love, and the freedom to live authentically are the greatest gifts we can offer future generations. Let the story of Louise and James serve as a reminder that family bonds and personal choice form the strongest foundation of any family.